This program is about unsolved mysteries. Whenever possible, the actual family members and police officials have participated in recreating the events. What you are about to see is not a news broadcast.
Tonight, two unusual mysteries to commemorate the spirit of the Easter season. She is known around the world as Our Lady of Guadalupe, a beautiful likeness of the Virgin Mary on an old piece of cactus cloth. For centuries, religious pilgrims have come to Mexico City to pray to the image, which many believe was created by a miracle. For just as long, scholars and skeptics have pondered, is Our Lady of Guadalupe a work of God or of man? In the 1950s, master illustrator Ben Stahl created 15 unique paintings to celebrate the final journey of Christ. But just after Easter in 1969, a gang of brazen thieves made off with the precious collection and left Ben Stahl heartbroken. Ben Stahl passed away in 1987, having no idea what happened to his beloved collection. Tonight, his children hope that someone in our audience can help recover their father's lost legacy. Join me for this intriguing case, as well as these fascinating mysteries. On Friday the 13th, 1991, Tom Roach dropped his girlfriend at her job and then vanished without a trace. 6 days later, an anonymous letter boasted that Tom Roach had been murdered. Near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a dark, lonely road, a minor traffic accident, a brutal attack. Now authorities need your help to identify a killer. And thanks to our viewers, a family in Canada is reunited with two brothers missing for nearly 25 years. Since the mid-19th century, religious pilgrims from around the world have journeyed to the French village of Lourdes. Since just before the First World War, hundreds of thousands have traveled to the Portuguese farmlands of Fatima. And in recent years, millions have come to Medjugorje in the former Republic of Yugoslavia. Many people believe these three communities have shared a remarkable occurrence: the miraculous appearance of the Virgin Mary, Mother of Jesus Christ. But for centuries, long before pilgrims flocked to Lourdes, Fatima, and Medjugorje, they have been coming to Mexico City to worship Our Lady of Guadalupe, an image of the Virgin Mary on a 6-foot-high peasant's cape made of rough cactus cloth, which many people claim was imprinted by the Virgin herself. For more than 400 years, Our Lady of Guadalupe has inspired and moved millions. Long a centerpiece of Catholic history, the image has also sparked intense controversy. To skeptics, it is a skillful painting, impressive but hardly wondrous. On the other hand, the Church has officially recognized the image as a creation of God, a miracle which occurred in 16th century Mexico, when Catholic missionaries from Spain were attempting to convert the native Aztec Indians. According to church records, there was a man named Juan Diego who lived with his uncle in a village 5 miles north of what is now Mexico City. Juan was one of the first Aztecs converted to Christianity. On a December morning in 1531, Juan Diego was on his way to Mass when he passed by the base of a hill called Tepeyac. As he approached the summit, Juan heard a voice call his name.
Juan. Juanito. El más humilde.
He was instantly overwhelmed by a godlike radiance.
Voy a la iglesia a oír misa, señora.
Sábete que soy la siempre Virgen María, Madre de Dios. Deseo sin demora que se construya un templo en mi honor, aquí, en el cerro del Tepeyac. Te he elegido a ti como mi mensajero, para que vayas con el obispo y le comuniques mi voluntad.
Pero, señora, yo solo soy un pobre indio. El señor obispo nunca me escuchará.
Ten fe, Juan.
Certain that he had experienced a miracle, Juan journeyed straight to Mexico City, then the seat of the Roman Catholic Church in the New World. He patiently waited several hours for an audience with Bishop Zumárraga, known as a powerful but gentle man who treated the Indians with kindness and respect.
Perdona, señor, pero me mandó la señora del cielo para decirte que desea que se le construya un templo en su honor en el cerro del Tepeyac.
¿Qué dices, hijo mío?
The bishop was skeptical. Perhaps Juan had been dreaming, or perhaps drinking.
¿O bebido demasiado?
He told Juan to bring him proof. Dejected, Juan returned home. But the next day, he would be given his proof. His uncle fell gravely ill, and Juan went to fetch a priest to perform last rites. His route took him back to the base of Tepeyac Hill.
Señora, voy en camino a buscar al sacerdote.
Querido Juanito, no será necesario. Tu tío sanará completamente.
Gracias, señora. Gracias. No pude convencer al señor obispo de tu encargo. Me dijo que necesitaría una señal tuya para creerme.
No estés triste, Juanito. Tú eres mi elegido. Ve a la cima del cerro y corta las flores que allí encontrarás.
Now Juan became filled with doubts of his own. Tepeyac was barren from the cold of winter, and if flowers had once been there, they would certainly not be blooming now. To Juan's astonishment, the hilltop was blanketed with brilliant roses of Castile. Juan gathered them in his tilma, a loose cape made of cactus cloth.
Pasa, hijo.
Mi señor, aquí está la señal que te envía Nuestra Señora del Cielo para que cumpla su voluntad.
According to church documents, where the flowers had rested in the tilma, there appeared an extraordinary image of the Virgin Mary.
Y del Espíritu Santo.
The bishop now believed that a miracle had occurred,
Salve María.
that Juan Diego had indeed seen and spoken with the Mother of God.
Bendita eres entre todas las mujeres.
After Juan Diego's vision, millions of Indians converted to Roman Catholicism within just 3 years. In accordance with the Virgin's wishes, this shrine was soon built on Tepeyac Hill with the image on prominent display. It was named Our Lady of Guadalupe after a village in Spain. Over the centuries, the church allowed painted details to be added to the portrait, including gold rays, a cherub, and the green, red, and white colors of Mexico. Since 1976, the image has been housed in a special basilica. Every year, 5 million believers make pilgrimages. But for as long as it has existed, there has been debate over whether the portrait is truly a miracle. Jody Smith, an associate professor of philosophy at a Florida college, is a leading authority on the image. But Smith is hardly the first scholar to be intrigued by Our Lady of Guadalupe. As early as 1666, the church commissioned a group of physicians and master artist Juan Salguero to inspect the Virgin's image.
Juan Salguero concluded that the painting was indeed on unsized or unprepared or unsealed cloth, and for that reason alone, others also appearing, but for that reason alone, given that the cloth was made of the fragile ayate cactus fiber, it should have long since disintegrated.
James Randi is a professional magician and an investigator of paranormal phenomena.
Matter of fact, I have a frame with some of the same kind of cloth in it that dates back about 450, 550 years at least from Peru. Different country, perhaps a different cactus. The Tilma cloth is very fragile, but not when it's put in a frame. It can last for the longest time.
For the first 100 years, the tilma had been exposed to a high concentration of saltpeter in the humid air where it was on display. Some experts believe this alone should have caused the image's disintegration. That point was dramatically demonstrated in 1789 when a skeptical priest ordered 11 artists to render 11 copies of the painting using the same kind of unsized cactus cloth. In just 7 years, all 11 were so peeled and coated with fungus that they had to be removed from public display.
I think that the fact that the image has lasted for almost 500 years now, the fact that the tilma, which is a cactus plant, hasn't rotted, and the fact that the original picture, the pigment on the original picture is still just like it always was and hasn't cracked, is another totally inexplicable thing.
In May of 1979, Jody Smith and Philip Callahan were given formal permission to examine the image up close, its protective glass removed. The gold rays around the Virgin, added in the 17th century, were badly chipped, but the original image of the face and body remained remarkably bright and uncracked.
Naturally enough, we examined the face most intensely, and studying this with the magnifying glass, we could see no hairline cracks. Whatever the medium used to color, it's very strange because after all of these years with no evidence of retouching, there's no evidence of age disfiguration.
It's gone through so many changes over the years, of course, and so many different representations have been made of it and for it that it's really hard to tell what happened to the original or if this is the original. You can't tell. There's really so little evidence available.
These infrared photographs reveal another surprising aspect, the lack of an undersketch. An undersketch would indicate that the image had been painted by human hands.
The film photographs, the infrared photographs, showed that there's absolutely no drawing under it. It's inconceivable that an artist in the 16th century would paint a portrait without first doing a drawing of it. In fact, it's fairly inconceivable any artist would do it today, although you could do it with some modern art thing, but not with a portrait.
The practice of making a rough sketch before proceeding with a portrait traces back to antiquity. Only when completely satisfied with the undersketch did an artist take up his paintbrush.
Of course, the absence of the undersketch in itself does not categorically indicate a miracle, but to paint as beautiful a face and bust as we see in Our Lady of Guadalupe on a rough cactus cloth is all the more remarkable.
This thing is miraculous because God willed this to take place among a people who needed some sort of message. It took place at a time when it was needed, and it took place because God made nature, and God can manipulate nature any way he wants.
The essential idea in studying the image of Guadalupe is that we might find something alien, something supernatural. And that remains an open possibility, but it is by no means the only possibility.
Perhaps no amount of scientific research can unlock the mystery of the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe. For true believers, there is no controversy. As they have for centuries, pilgrims will continue to pray and offer thanks to the image. To them, the beautiful face of the Virgin Mary is purely and simply something of miraculous wonder. When we return, the search for an artist's precious lost legacy, 15 paintings depicting the final days of Christ. In the Gospel according to John, it is written, "So then Pilate took Jesus and scourged him. And the soldiers twisted a crown of thorns, and they put it on his head. And he, bearing his cross, went out to a place called Golgotha." The Bible movingly recounts the story of the crucifixion. Its power is undeniable. These compelling images, which illustrate the story, are the life's work of American artist Ben Stahl. There are 15 paintings in all, depicting the 14 stations of the cross and the resurrection. Sadly, the public has not been able to view these works for nearly 25 years. It happened 10 days after Easter in 1969. Ben Stahl's beloved collection was stolen. Stahl died in 1987, still mourning the loss of the works he considered his masterpieces. Tonight, Ben Stahl's children hope that they can find their father's lost paintings in time for Easter. They feel that would be the most fitting and most moving tribute they could give him. Ben Stahl was born in Chicago in 1910. Even as a young man, he enjoyed a reputation as a skilled artist for books and magazines. Norman Rockwell once wrote in a letter to Stahl, "The rest of us are just illustrators, but you are among the masters." In 1954, the Catholic press commissioned Ben Stahl to paint the Stations of the Cross for a special papal edition of the Bible. The 14 small paintings were such a resounding success that Ben Stahl decided to duplicate them on a grander scale.
And over the years, my father would get letters from people all over the world wanting to see them and wondering where they were. And so I guess my parents got together and decided to build a museum. And Daddy would paint a new set. And Daddy also added the 15th painting, which was the Resurrection.
Well, he spent 2 years painting these paintings. There was something very special going on while he was painting these paintings, because when he did the face of Christ, or the head of Christ, he pulled it off in 30, 40 brushstrokes without ever having to do it over again. And he was really amazed at that.
In November of 1966, Ben Stahl opened the Museum of the Cross in Sarasota, Florida, to house a second set of paintings.
The mob seems to pull back, and even the Roman soldiers do not intrude themselves into this
It was almost holy. I mean, it's just the atmosphere of the museum. And people would come out with tears in their eyes. It was very moving for a lot of people.
But on April 17, 1969, Ben Stahl's world came crashing down. Responding to a frantic phone call from the museum director, Stahl found the galleries ransacked. All 15 paintings had been stolen. Ben Stahl was inconsolable.
He found it absolutely incredible that this kind of thing could happen. For after all, who would steal religious paintings in the first place? And such large paintings. What could you do with them?
He had a lot of trust in people. Insurance was very expensive, but he didn't have any, there were no burglar alarms or anything like that because of this trust. So when the place was robbed, He was in total shock.
Police discovered that the thieves had entered the museum in a brazen fashion, breaking through the fire door. They were somehow aware that neither a security guard nor an alarm system was in place. Instead of cutting the canvases out, the thieves painstakingly removed each staple, then rolled the paintings up and made a clean getaway.
That there had to be at least 3 to 4 people to do this. And we felt that they were probably in there in a minimum of 4 hours.
The investigation seemed to be at a dead end. Then 6 weeks after the theft, a man claiming to be a Catholic priest called the Sarasota Sheriff's Office. He said he had been approached by the people who stole the paintings.
Yes?
You want the paintings?
Paintings?
Yeah, you know, the paintings.
Paintings in Sarasota?
Yeah, that's right. Stay right there, Father.
Of course, we were elated. You know, this was a break after
Tell the family we want
all these weeks of investigation.
paintings back.
However, this lead too failed to pan out. The priest would not give his name, and eventually he broke off contact. What happened to Ben Stahl's paintings? Over the years, rumor has placed the collection in the Bahamas or in South America, possibly Brazil. The authorities, however, believe that the paintings are still somewhere in the United States, and that whoever has them now may not even know they are stolen. Recently, we went to Canada to bring you the story of one of that country's great national tragedies. For 20 years, through a well-meaning but misguided social welfare system, thousands of Ojibwe Indian children were taken from their families and their reservations to be put up for adoption. In the segment, we profiled the Seton family of Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Is your mommy or daddy home?
In 1969, the 6 children were taken from their home by government social workers.
Take you away to somewhere where someone can take care of you, all right?
Sandra Seton, the oldest, was just 9.
It happened so fast. They just, come in and they don't really explain anything. They just picked up the kids and put them in the car. It was real scary, not knowing where they were going to be taken. You kind of go a little dead inside or something, because we're all just kids.
The order will go as applied for. At a court hearing, a judge ordered that all 6 children be put up for adoption, but Sandra never gave up trying to reunite her family. By 1988, she had found her 2 sisters, her mother, and her oldest brother. But the 2 youngest boys, Calvin and Bernie, were still missing. On the night this story aired in Canada, Bernie's adoptive parents and one of Calvin's former foster mothers were watching the show. Through their efforts and cooperation, the 2 brothers were put in touch with their sister Sandra. 3 weeks after our broadcast, everything was arranged. March 4th, 1993 would be a day of reunions, joy, and tears. At 10:30 a.m., Sandra and her mother, Myrna, were at the Winnipeg airport awaiting the arrival of Bernie.
I had such an anxious feeling just looking and wondering, because we hadn't seen Bernie at all. We didn't see no picture, and and then all of a sudden, his face just, sort of just was right there, and oh, that's him. Oh, and then...
With Bernie back in the fold, the group headed to Myrna's house, where they knew Calvin would be waiting. In his youth, Calvin had been shunted about to 14 different foster families. Now he was finally home again after nearly 25 years.
Bertie.
It feels really good to be taken in instead of being pushed away. Hey, like this is a big switch for me, and I'm happy. If I knew bigger words, I probably could say some big word that would describe how I feel right now, but there's no words that I can think of that describes this. Just, you know, it's the beginning. I just think it's the beginning of a good thing.
It's all good. It feels great. Just great that there's a piece of my life put together, which I think all my friends knew that there was a piece missing. Maybe this is just the part to my life that was missing.
Oh, it's got so much to talk about, you know? So much.
It's just a really great feeling. There is a piece, you know, there was always that piece of my heart somehow just needed, you know, to know that they were okay.
Yeah, tonight.
Each one of us has our own lives, but it's so good to know that we have family.
Tom Roach and Barbara Rondo of Burbank, California, loved nothing better than to fire up their Harley Davidson and hit the road. They belonged to a club that often drove on weekend trips across California. Barbara and Tom met in Rhode Island and moved to California in 1988. After 16 years together, cycling was a passion they shared.
We've known each other since '76, and all our extra time was spent riding. Tom's my father, lover, teacher, guide. Tom's my life.
Like their fellow cycle club members, who were lawyers, plumbers, and accountants, Tom and Barbara held steady, everyday jobs. Barbara worked at a blueprint company. Tom was an expert in metal plating. In the fall of 1991, he accepted a well-paid management position with a company that plated aircraft parts. He was to start on Monday, September 16th. Three days before, on Friday the 13th, Tom drove Barbara to work. They made plans to meet for lunch.
Oh, listen, I gotta go to the Chrome Shop.
Are you still gonna be here at noon?
Absolutely.
Okay, don't be late.
Miss you.
Bye.
But Tom never showed up and never called to explain.
My lunchtime came around, and he wasn't there. So just hanging around waiting for him, and no show, and I thought maybe that he might have gotten caught up at his new place of employment. But in fact, he would have called me and said, you know, Barbara, I'm not going to be able to make it. I'm still at the plating shop or whatever. Tom wouldn't have let me just hang there, you know, waiting on him.
By the time Barbara got home at about 5:30 p.m., she still had not heard from Tom.
Mom?
She was surprised to find the front door unlocked.
Tom?
There was no sign of Tom. Everything was in its place except for Tom.
But an ominous pattern soon emerged. The newspaper was still unopened. Strange, since Tom rarely left the sports page unread. A motorcycle battery that Tom had planned to install that morning was on the counter. The answering machine was off, suggesting Tom had planned to be at home most of the day. Barbara had no choice but to wait and hope.
I didn't sleep at all that night. Just trying to figure out where Tom was and why he hadn't called to let me know where he might be.
There's a lot of different circumstances for different types of missing persons. They could take off because of family problems. They can take off because of money problems. They can take off for a number of different reasons. We really don't know the reason until we get into talking with the family or friends.
If Tom, in fact, wanted to get out of our relationship, or if, again, there was a problem, you know, Tom would have just told me right out.
Do you see a lot of people going in and out of that house?
No, just him and Barb.
Routine questioning around the neighborhood turned up nothing significant. Police could not determine whether Tom had left voluntarily or become the victim of some kind of violence. It was as though Tom Roach had simply evaporated. However, Barbara was convinced something terrible had happened to Tom, and she circulated these flyers at his usual hangouts. No one came forward with any information, and Tom Roach was officially listed as a missing person. A day passed, then 2, soon 5. Barbara's father flew in from Rhode Island to be with her. Then on Thursday, September 19th, a letter arrived, addressed to the family of Tom Roach. In the envelope were Tom's driver's license and the earring he had been wearing the day he disappeared. They were enfolded in a letter, a bizarre confession that would wrench the case in a sinister new direction. This is the actual letter received by Barbara Rondo. It begins, "You don't know me and hopefully never will, but I am the one who killed Tom Roach. I sent along some personal belongings of his just so that you won't think this is some kind of sick joke or anything." Finally, the self-proclaimed killer goes on to say, "I am very sorry for what I have done. I know in time what the guilt will leave me. So will your pain."
Barbara, did Tom have any enemies? Was there someone who might have wanted to hurt him?
Nobody that knew Tom would want to hurt him.
Barbara Rondo was devastated. Had Tom Roach been murdered, or was the letter a hoax? It yielded no fingerprints, bore no return address, and was, of course, unsigned.
It was just unbelievable. But I wasn't going to believe that Tom was dead.
Authorities immediately renewed their efforts to track Tom Roach's activities on Friday the 13th. Bank records show Tom made 2 deposits at approximately 8:20 a.m. He did not withdraw any money, indicating he had no plans to leave town.
I gotta meet my old lady at noon for lunch. She'll get real hot if I'm late, you know.
Tom was next seen by a neighbor, talking with an unidentified white male at about 9:30 a.m. If the letter is not a hoax, then police believe this man may have been Tom's killer.
We contacted one witness who told us that she had seen Thomas that morning with another subject standing by a pickup truck looking into the bed of the pickup truck. She said that they were not arguing. It looked like they were just carrying on a normal conversation, and there was nothing suspicious about that. And I believe that was the last time Thomas was seen.
Okay, started for a Sportster.
However, testimony from one eyewitness suggests the letter may indeed be a hoax. An employee at a motorcycle parts store in nearby Glendale is convinced Tom came in on Saturday, September 14th, one day after the letter said Tom was killed.
He acted a little strange in the sense that he didn't joke around with me. I mean, we would always joke around about what kind of motorcycle he rode and about it, or leaking oil and stuff, you know. So, I mean, I knew Tom well enough to know Saturday that it was Tom that came in. Okay, here we go. I had gone into the warehouse to pick up some parts for the customer. And when I came out, Tom wasn't there or anything, so he must have left when I was in the warehouse. I'll have to go in. And I mean, I just feel it's kind of strange that he didn't say anything when he came in or when he left.
Authorities believe Andy Marsala did see Tom Roach, but suspect he is mistaken about the date. However, the account raises a disturbing possibility. Perhaps Tom Roach intentionally fled and wrote the grotesque letter to cover his tracks. 4 months passed. With no clues, no eyewitnesses, and no further letters, the investigation dragged to a standstill until January 11th, 1992. That afternoon, authorities in Placer County, California, almost 500 miles north of Burbank, were called to investigate a report of weathered bone fragments and personal effects strewn over a remote hillside. Motorcycle emblems on some of the clothing eventually led authorities to link the items to Tom Roach.
Rush, I need the bag.
The scattered possessions included a duffel bag, flashlight, hunting knife, bottled water, 2 pairs of prescription eyeglasses, an empty prescription medicine bottle, and several shirts. If the items were indeed Tom's, he seemed to have been packed and ready for the road. Investigators contacted Barbara Rondo. She recognized all the shirts and a pair of eyeglass frames as Tom's.
I do feel that what they found is Tom. But there's that hope that he is still out there somewhere, and that in fact I will find him.
What is the truth about Tom Roach? The mysterious letter, taken at face value, would explain Tom's disappearance, unless it was written by Tom Roach himself.
It has been a nightmare. It has been hell. I still live for Tom. He's my life. There's not a minute that goes by that he's not within my thoughts. He'll always be within me.
It is interesting to note that this letter claims Tom Roach was murdered and then buried in the Los Angeles area, nearly 500 miles south of Placer County. Within the next few months, authorities will conduct DNA tests on the bone fragments to finally prove whether they are Tom's remains. Until then, the only person who may be able to answer the questions in this case is the author of the letter, and for now his identity remains a mystery. When we return, the only clues in a murder case come from the victim himself before he dies. Fortunately, the only contact most of us will ever have with random violent crime is watching the nightly news. Random crime is very real, extremely difficult for police to solve, and utterly impossible for families touched by the violence to comprehend. One such family was the Hurleys of Turtle Creek, Pennsylvania. Pam and David Hurley were married in 1983. By 1988, their family had grown to include 3 sons. The Hurleys shared an undramatic but happy life until the early morning hours of Saturday, June 13th, 1992. That weekend, David and his brother were taking a troop of Boy Scouts on a long-planned canoe trip.
Honey, I'm just gonna go. I'm too wound up to sleep. I'm gonna go pick up some donuts and head over to my brother's. Hang out there till we go, okay?
Okay.
You have a good weekend.
You too.
I love you.
Love you too. Be really careful.
David left home at 1:30 a.m.
Pam?
About an hour and a half later, Pam was startled to hear her husband calling out.
David?
Tammy, could you come down here?
What are you doing home?
Pam? I need you to come down here. Tammy, I've been shot.
What?
I've been shot.
What are you talking about? Oh my God.
I was stunned and thoroughly shocked. I just couldn't comprehend that he had been shot. That was just too unbelievable.
While they waited for paramedics to arrive, David told his wife about the chilling events of that morning. David had stopped for donuts and was heading toward his brother's house. Suddenly, a car appeared out of nowhere. David told Pam he expected simply to exchange insurance information with the other driver. What happened next defies reason.
Hey, man, what's going on?
What the hell are you talking about?
Are you all right?
I'm all right.
Hey, man. Hey, man!
He said all he can remember is getting in the van and trying desperately to get home, to get away.
I don't know his average size.
Police and paramedics arrived at around 3:30 a.m., and David told his story again.
He was calm for a person that had just been shot. He was able to give me the information I was asking for so we could stop this vehicle before it got too far away from our area. At that particular time, I was concerned with getting information that I could put on the air for the other units that were still out on the road.
That you're gonna be just fine. Okay, man.
David Hurley would be rushed by helicopter to Presbyterian University Hospital in Pittsburgh, 6 miles away. At 4:30 a.m., he was wheeled into emergency surgery. His doctors emerged from the operating room 2 hours later.
And I remember we looked at the clock and it was 6:30 a.m. And I looked at my brother and I said, this is great. They're done already. It must have been a lot better than we expected because we expected 4 to 5 hours from what they told us.
In addition to gunshot wounds on the arm and shoulder, David was bleeding internally from a lacerated liver. The surgeon told Pam that the operation had progressed well until, without warning, David went into acute cardiac arrest.
I said to him, you've got to be kidding. And he said, no, I'm not kidding. He's dead.
David Eugene Hurley, husband and father of 3, murdered at the age of 34. In searching for David's killer, police are limited to the sketchy information Hurley himself gave before he died.
Hey, man!
We only have the description of a young black male driving a champagne-colored Honda Prelude. And it's a good possibility that this individual is local.
When someone you love dies, it's very painful, and that never goes away, and I'm sure that never will. But that pain is also turning to anger. To realize that there's a person out there continuing with his life as if nothing happened just makes me very angry.
David Hurley was attacked along Route 22 in Wilkins Township, Pennsylvania on June 13, 1992. During the few moments Hurley was face-to-face with the assailant, he noticed no unusual characteristics, and at this time police lacked sufficient information to produce even a sketch of the suspect. Join me next time. Perhaps you hold that crucial clue which could help solve a mystery.
Thank you.